Now, obviously, the raw ingredient here is the sunflower seeds. How do you use that? Well, you sell the seeds or you replant the seeds. But what I'm looking to do is add value. So the first step in that process for me is drying out the seeds, and then we're going to try and grow microgreens. So what's interesting is we're on a mine, and one of the things that have been a criticism of mines beyond their extractive nature and the environmental damage that they cause and the lack of remediation after they finish mining an area, etc., is that we often take our very precious natural resources and we just export them raw. So there's always been a criticism that we do not add value to these things before we sell them. So as an example, gold, we'll mine it raw, ship it raw at some low price, and then we'll buy back the processed gold in the form of jewelry or whatever the case is. And so there's an argument for adding value. The complexity increases, and your need to diversify your expertise and your capacity to do more than just mine or ore or do the basic production of food is potentially a lot more. The revenue and the opportunity is exponentially more. Yes, we've produced sunflowers. They may, to the naked eye here, not look the most fantastic, but that's because they're at the end of the season, end of their life, and those seeds have dried out. What you should notice here is the absolute magnitude of the head here. The sunflower head is massive, and it's so massive that these sunflowers are drooping. So unlike the sunflowers you're going to see on a mass monoculture when you drive through the Free State and see it for endless miles like you do corn, here maybe only a few, but of substantial quality. Now, microgreens are a high value crop. So instead of just selling the seeds, we spend some time and effort in R&D. We spend some time and effort growing out microgreens from these seeds. We get literally almost close to an order of magnitude more for that value. And as long as obviously our efficiencies are there and we reduce the costs of growing those microgreens to less than that, then there's a profit margin. And there's an additional effective enterprise in what we're doing. We could potentially employ more people. We can empower more people in the process rather than just handing that power over to someone by just giving them the seeds. So the other great thing about microgreens, beyond the fact that they fetch a premium at the market, is that they are highly nutritious. So if you imagine, they're the baby version of the plant. In fact, what sort of defines a microgreen over a larger plant is the fact that the cotyledons, the false leaves, are when you cut it. In other words, as those emerge and just before the true leaves sort of come out, or leaves, that's the point at which you harvest. So very little energy is gone into growing a long stem, into growing the flowers, into growing leaves. And so all of that soil nutrition is just gone to that initial sprouting process and to that part where that microgreen is now at that sort of at that harvestable size. And that's actually where all the nutrition is held. And so when you eat a microgreen, it is just packed full of nutrition. So it's a nutrient dense product. So put in smoothies, put it onto your salads, as an addendum to other meals, or just mange straight in your face. It is an incredibly nutritionally dense food, and so there's all these benefits, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So the harvesting process goes something like taking the heads off, cutting those down. What we do, just as a side note, is that generally with the no-dig sort of planting principles, we leave the roots in the ground. So if you can imagine all those roots, and particularly with sunflowers, they've got to hold up a very strong and heavy stem and a very strong and heavy head. And so those roots go pretty deep and spread out so that plant can maintain some stability. And so there's quite an extensive root system there that you don't want to pull out the ground, because you're disturbing a lot of that ground and you're creating an environment in which weeds could then sprout. But also you've created there, as a good thing, a microhabitat for an entire microbiome of microbes and of good bacteria and of things that are living in there, living soil. And so you don't want to disturb that. And what you do is that we then trim, we obviously take the head off, and then we trim the stem away, and we use that as compost, or as part of our composting process that breaks down. But under the ground then, that root system is going to slowly decay and actually provide nutrients and, like I said, a habitat under the soil. So it becomes a living soil. So that's part of the process. Once we've got the heads off, then basically it's a case of brushing the flower, the petals off, and then exposing the seeds. And then it's a bit of a laborious process of pushing those seeds out until you've got them all off the head. And then we have a time at which we just let those seeds dry out before planting them in our microgreen system.